Hi. I'd like us to think a little bit about what schools know about ADHD and how it presents, because I am getting inundated with scenarios and questions that are really solvable if we make sure everybody that's a part of the school system, that means teachers, principals, counselors, paraeducators, has some knowledge about the very different ways of ADHD. So let me give you an example. I get questions that come in from people of all at levels, a lot in elementary and middle school, but also in high school about test retakes. It's a really common accommodation to put down some form of able to retake a test as needed. And it becomes a sticking point because in some classes and subjects, the teacher has structured the assessments and says, okay, that's part of my formative assessment. If a student retakes a test, whether they were sick or had a 504 plan or had some other reason, that's fine because I'm looking by the end of the class that they actually demonstrate that they know the knowledge. That's what their grade is based on. So in those scenarios, having that type of accommodation just out there seems to be fine. But in a lot of cases, people are thinking about the test as I'm giving the test. And if you don't pass it in this one format, in this one way, you are not learning and you're doing something to an unfair advantage to retake it. And there's two problems with that. Number one, in the course of any class that a student's taking, they're learning knowledge and skills and they need to apply them and show they know them. So I would push on the fact that if you have to take it a couple times to show that you know it, but you ultimately can independently show you know it, then you've met the goals for the course. But that's a discussion, and I think we can have it and push into it. My bigger problem with accommodations like this is that they're done to a student, but without the involvement of the student. And so they're technically on the surface in accommodation in a 504 plan for ADHD, but they're not addressing the underlying reason the student might not be doing well on the test. If you dig down with questions about, well, why are they not getting a passing score? And you ask what the test was, what the content was, what the format was, how have people taught this young person, let's say they're 10 years old, how to approach a test in sections to address some immediate rewards, to complete parts of the test. Very common to rush through it for the reward at the end of their drawing, their book, their Chromebook, whatever. And if we're not designing the test in a way that is supporting students with neurodivergence to be able to continually engage and re-engage, but more importantly, if we're not teaching the kids how to do that, like we're not teaching as the teachers and the counselors and the principals the steps so that the student learns them and then eventually needs less and less adult involvement because they now have a new strategy. It's transferable, whether they're in fifth grade, sixth grade, 10th grade, they have a strategy of this is how I approach tests that are not my favorite subject, that are not my passion, that don't have that immediate reward. If it's a test on capitalization and the student rushes through it, there's a high chance that that's a matter of how we design the test and what we could do differently to make sure that the student has that skill of being able to know what parts of a sentence or names to capitalize, but not do it in a format that is setting them up for failure. And a lot of this doesn't cost anything. It's a knowledge piece. It's a piece of supporting intentionally students, the educators, and their families to understand that. So as you're thinking about your school system, whether you're looking at it from the district office, site leader, teacher, or parent perspective, what are those concrete examples where you're teaching the executive functioning skill, the strategy that a student of any age can start practicing with some support from adults so that over time they can independently have that skill? I'd love to know. Message me or leave a comment because I'd like to talk about both where this is happening, how school systems are doing this, but also I would like to take the challenging problems you're facing and show you how you can do it in a low to no cost way, bridging the gap. What I just talked about testing approaches and executive functioning does not cost anything other than building up the time and the knowledge to do that.